Miami's top wide receiver target is on campus this weekend, and the Hurricanes can create some separation. One of Miami's top linebacker targets just decommitted from Auburn right in time for his Miami visit.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday. We made it. I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC and writer for Canes County at Rivals. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On today's episode, you remember when Wisconsin was whining, complaining, and issuing strongly worded statements condemning Miami for alleged tampering and accusing Miami transferred from Wisconsin to Miami, Xavier Lucas, of breaching a contract. Well, now, as Wisconsin and Luke Fickell have found out, karma is a you-know-what. We'll get to that. We'll get to the priority recruiting targets who are on campus for the third weekend of official visits this weekend in Coral Gables, and a couple of those are chief among them. All right, let's talk about, this was a big news on a decommitment for a very prominent program. So four-star linebacker JaMichael Garrett had been an Auburn commit, former Auburn resident. He just moved from Auburn to Louisiana, but he had been committed to the Auburn Tigers since last July for around 11 months. There had long been rumors and speculation. He kept his recruitment open, talked about wanting to see other programs despite being verbally pledged to Auburn. Yesterday, the decommitment became official. I think Auburn fans saw the writing on the wall for a few months here that they might lose this player from their class. But JaMichael Garrett officially decommitted from Auburn. He wrote on his X account, he was quote tweeting something from Hayes Fawcett about him decommitting. He said, "Blessed for everything the Auburn community has done for me." But he's out of Auburn. 6'2", 205-pound, one of the top linebackers in the class. And folks, the timing could not be more fortuitous for South Florida, because JaMichael Garrett decommits from Auburn, about 24, 36 hours before arriving in South Florida to start a multi-day official visit at the U. So the Hurricanes have a tremendous opportunity. And, it's been a good little streak here at linebacker. Miami was able to weather the storm with Jordan Campbell, four-star linebacker they've had committed. He shut his recruitment down. He's focusing on the U. Even going back to the transfer portal for this coming season, Miami landed Kamal Bonner and Mohamed Toure, some good linebackers to add to the class, and now they're looking for this 2026 recruiting class. So JaMichael Garrett, 6'2", 205-pounder, visiting Miami this weekend. The other schools that are in the mix for him, and folks, by no way am I saying this is a slam dunk for the Hurricanes, but Miami has become a big-time program to watch here for him. But he's also strongly considering Ole Miss, Texas A&M, and LSU. And he now actually lives in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, so LSU's right around the corner from him. This player is rated the 14th best linebacker in the 24/7 composite, 14th best linebacker in the country, 9th rated overall player out of the state of Louisiana. Explosive field general, really strong tackler, very quick, very explosive. And he's also quite good in coverage based on his highlight reel. I was watching some of his huddle tape earlier this week. Now, as far as JaMichael Garrett's recruitment, I mentioned this thing is open, and Miami has an opportunity. And it would not be the first time. He's visited Miami before. Unofficially, he's gotten a look for the Hurricanes. Miami's been very involved in his recruitment, even during the time he was committed to Auburn. But this one feels wide open. Like I sent a text message last night to the recruiting overlord, Brian Smith. And he actually lives in Auburn, so I figured he'd have a pretty good pulse on this situation. I asked him where he expects JaMichael Garrett to end up, and he said to me, quote, "Impossible to say." So the recruitment is wide open. Miami's going to take a big swing this weekend. And, remember, the man who is recruiting that position is also, your defensive coordinator. So Coach Heatherman is going to have the opportunity to land another top player for his position group. He's also the linebackers coach at Miami. Now, in terms of the South Floridians, who are we excited for visiting this weekend? Not to say you aren't excited for JaMichael, Garrett, and players from outside the area, but one that really feels like a borderline must get for the Hurricanes. We've got PTSD when it comes to five-star receivers leaving Miami and not staying here. We don't want another Jeremiah Smith type of situation. Five-star receiver Calvin Russell has his official visit this weekend. Top player from the state of Florida, excluding, IMG guys and boarding school guys, true Floridian. Top player in the state, 6'5", 195-pound wide receiver, multi-sport athlete. He also wants to play basketball collegiately in addition to playing football. He's got a Miami offer to play basketball in addition to his football offer. And Calvin Russell, the decision is also coming up in just a couple of weeks for him, about 2.5, 3 weeks. He's going to be deciding on July 5th, his birthday. And I mentioned Miami being in the lead here. I'm going by sentiment, recruiting trackers. The On3 prediction machine, for example, does give Miami a lead, not a big majority, but a lead for Calvin Russell. This one is not, I haven't dropped the Donno ball for the Hurricanes to land Russell. I think his recruitment, it's national and it's still very wide open. So if we perceive Miami to be in the lead, which is probably fair to give at least a slight lead to the hometown Hurricanes. Remember, his mother, Chenevia Broussard, was an all-time great women's basketball player at the U. She's in the UM Sports Hall of Fame. Miami Northwestern product, hometown player. So we put Miami in the lead, but it's not a huge lead. I think the Hurricanes have an opportunity to create some separation here with a great visit. Like if he has a really good visit, we can do some work here. He's already visited LSU, Florida, and Oregon. He's scheduled to visit Florida State next week after visiting Miami. Syracuse and Michigan have also been pushing for him. So, Calvin Russell is not just focusing strictly on the in-state schools. His recruitment is bi-coastal and completely national. So the Hurricanes have a chance here. And yeah, we do believe, a few weeks ago, I think Miami did gain some momentum for Russell, and it's probably why they're considered to be the trending leader. When he got that basketball offer from Jae Lucas and reportedly got actually not only the offer, but the green light from Coach Lucas, play football, and then you can join the team, in January. You can join the team a couple months late. And, hey, he'd only be taking up one scholarship, 2 sports, 1 scholarship. Come on down, Calvin Russell. I think it would have to be the football scholarship for those wondering. So he would be taking up, one of Miami's, 105 now. After the House settlement, you go from 85 scholarships to 105. So he would be taking up one of those for the football team, which is fine. You use your scholarships on 5-star players. No one is going to complain about that, but it would be the football, not the basketball scholarship for him. I talked about Miami gaining some buzz a few weeks ago, but I did hear that LSU got some recent buzz. It was 2 weekends ago. He visited Baton Rouge, and they were able to generate some buzz there as well. I know we've talked about Syracuse in the past as being another team that at times was trending for Calvin Russell, but here's to hoping, keep my fingers crossed, that a really good OV weekend in Coral Gables coming up is going to help Miami take a big lead for this player. Other really important visitors this weekend, including one of Miami's top 2 tight end targets, is going to be on campus this weekend. Can tight end you land a commitment from Israel Briggs? You want to keep it locked right here, my friends. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Folks, we're only getting started with Monarch Money, and I've been leaning on Monarch Money pretty heavily because I've been on a quasi vacation in Europe. I'm in Europe, and it's very expensive over here. Traveling is very expensive. I've been budgeting smart because, hey, if you've ever checked your bank account and wondered, where did all my money go? You're not alone. Between dining out, online shopping, traveling, entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was overspending on stuff like food delivery. Now I budget smarter and I save more. And instead of juggling multiple apps, you could use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, even plan long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. For your next listen, check out Locked On ACC. I co-host that show with Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack. We take you around the conference, all the big storylines. I've got my hotel room and my credential reserved for ACC kickoff media days coming up in a little bit over a month. I'll be out there in Charlotte covering Miami and the rest of the conference live from out there. So check out Locked On ACC, available free wherever you get your podcasts and available free on YouTube. So, all right, I talked so far just about two of the official visitors for this weekend. Five-star receiver Calvin Russell, hometown, Northwestern, feels like a borderline must get. And Miami does have other wide receivers that they're looking at, including Tristan Keys, the top in the country. He visited a couple of weeks ago. He's a current LSU commit. Jason Lopez from Chaminade is another one who's going to be visiting at the end of this official visit cycle. And there's actually more wide receivers visiting this weekend. We'll get to it, but Calvin Russell feels like a really important get for Miami, being the five-star with the potential. Like, his ceiling is through the roof. That feels like that old Michael Jordan quote. The ceiling is the roof. No, it's through the roof for Calvin Russell. And we talked about the former Auburn committed linebacker, JaMichael Garrett, as well. But another important visitor is four-star tight end Israel Briggs, Izzy, out of Visalia, California, 6'4.5", 200 pounds. So he's not like the big, heavy blocking tight end. To this point in high school, he's been more of a jumbo receiver, but projects to be a tight end at the next level. I think he's going to keep putting on weight before he becomes a college player. And he's one of the top tight ends in the class. So even if he's probably not fully physically mature yet to be a tight end at the University of Miami, I think he will be by the time he gets to college. Hurricanes have some momentum for him. This is the 6th rated tight end in the entire country, but possibly the most versatile. And, if Elijah Lofton, who's on the team now, and I think is going to have a breakout year this year, is any indication, Miami places a lot of importance on versatility for their tight ends. So this is a player, Izzy Briggs, in high school. He has taken snaps at tight end, wide receiver, running back, quarterback, linebacker, safety, and edge rusher. I think he's done everything except punt to this point, and long snap. Izzy Briggs and Jose Kent, who visited a couple weeks ago, are probably the two tight ends that I'm the highest on. Maybe Miami is as well. Those are the two that I really love in this class. I don't think Briggs, who's visiting this weekend and has been considered like maybe this is one of the next players who could commit to Miami, but I haven't seen him drop a commitment date to my knowledge. I don't think he has a date in mind yet. That could change, and one of Miami's other top tight ends, who is physically a little different than Briggs because he's 280 plus pounds, Jose Superman Kent, he's got a July 12th commitment date in mind where he's deciding between Miami, Florida, and Texas. But it's been characterized to me for Kent as kind of a Miami versus Florida battle. As far as Izzy Briggs, other teams in the mix for him that he's visited, Cal, which is close to home for him, and LSU. LSU did generate some buzz for him with his recent visit there. So that might be the top team Miami is battling. Now, despite the fact that Briggs is from all the way over on the West Coast, this is going to be his third trip down to South Florida this year. So he's been an unofficial visitor, and he's going to be returning. So a big-time tight end target for tight end. You will be watching him. Another important target is at running back. Four-star running back Jae Lamar. He's the 8th ranked running back in the entire class, 6 foot tall, 205 pounds. And Jae Lamar, his announcement is going to be later this month. It's coming up on June 25th. He's going to announce between Miami, Georgia, Florida State, Clemson, and Auburn. Those are among the others in the mix for him. He plays at Colquitt County High School in Georgia, which is familiar to Miami fans because he's a former teammate of receiver Nikar and linebacker Kamal Bonner. So we can continue that Colquitt County pipeline to the U. Now, running back, that's been a really interesting recruiting position to follow this year for the Hurricanes, because Miami's got one committed, Javion Mallory, from West Boca, but he's going to be taking a visit to Alabama this weekend. So, he's saying all the right things about being committed to Miami, but he wanted to check out Alabama. We'll see if Kalen DeBoer, and apparently, according to what Mallory's been saying, Kalen DeBoer has been really personally involved with his recruitment. I'm sure Mario Cristobal has on the Miami side as well, but he's respected how hard Alabama's been recruiting him. So he wanted to check them out. So our concern level, it goes up, even though Mallory for several months has been committed to Miami. I hope we can hold on to him, but it's worth noting one of Miami's current committed running back is visiting one of the top programs in the country. Miami, of course, would love to sign Derek Cooper, who is another must-get type of player, 5-star running back out of Chaminade, Madonna. Cooper is still undecided. He did preview that a commitment date could be coming soon. We think Miami and Georgia are trending in front for him, with Miami maybe having a slight lead. But Derek Cooper is undecided. We're worried about Javion Mallory. People have also asked me if, Jae Lamar is like a plan B. I think Jae Lamar is way too good to be considered a plan B. I think he would be the featured back in the recruiting classes of 90% of the programs in the FBS in the entire country. So I wouldn't describe Jae Lamar as a plan B. I think this is a player Miami would really like to have, and I think they're casting a wide net with a handful of the top running backs in America. I even think that if it came down to Javion Mallory sticking with Miami, Jae Lamar wanting to be a Cane, and Derek Cooper wanted to be a Cane, I don't think they'd be opposed to taking all three. Gio Million said that on this show a few months ago, and I stand by that. I think if the opportunity came up, I think all three of them are takes. I mentioned other receivers coming this weekend. One of those is 4-star wide receiver Zion Robinson. Really good player, and I like his size. 6'3", 180. He's out of Mansfield, Texas. Really strong catch radius, as you would imagine, at that size. And this dude can leap. He's very explosive, very good yard after catch receiver, but he's also got a tremendous vertical leap because he actually has a state championship high jump. For this player, Zion Robinson, Miami is battling the likes of Michigan, Stanford, Texas Tech, and Nebraska. I was reading some comments, I think, from On3 of Zion Robinson. He talked about Kevin Beard. Coach KB has been really instrumental in getting Miami into his recruitment and into his finalist lists. So those other schools that I mentioned are with Miami in his finalists. Zion came to the pool party back in March, and I think he liked what he saw. He wanted to come again for the official visit. A couple of safeties visiting this weekend. You've probably seen some buzz in recent months for Miami for 4-star safety Blake Stewart. 6 foot tall, 170 pounds, out of Woodward Academy in Atlanta, Georgia. There's been a lot of Clemson buzz for him, though, as well, so watch out for that. But in the past, there's been Miami buzz. Another 4-star safety visiting Cortez Redding. 6 foot, 170 pounds, out of Jonesboro, Georgia. Also in the mix for him, NC State, Auburn, Florida State, and Florida. Now, the On3 prediction machine, for what it's worth, has Miami trending way out in front for him. And Stephen Wagner from Kane Sport dropped a prediction in Miami's favor back in mid-April for Cortez Redding. So that's another one. We'll see if Miami can get that one over the finish line to join what's an already very talented defensive backs class at the U. And speaking on safeties, I'm also a big fan of one of them who visited last week, safety Devin Jackson, former Florida commit, close with Will Harris. Again, if we're looking at maybe next players who might commit to Miami, Devin Jackson is one of those that we're watching as well, but don't sleep on Cortez Redding. 3-star defensive back Kosi Barnes out of Greensboro, North Carolina, 6'3", 190. I think the recruiting services have him listed as a corner, but I think Miami's recruiting him as a safety, if I'm not mistaken. He also has interest as Kosi Barnes from Kentucky, South Carolina, and Rutgers, along with Miami. Another receiver visiting, 3-star wide receiver Tyron Evans. He's a Tennessee Volunteers commit, so Miami's looking for a flip He's 6'3", 185 pounds. And then the final two official visitors for this weekend are both Miami commits on the offensive line. And by the way, two friends of the show. So I'm rooting for these guys. They're already committed, but I want them both to have an awesome visit. Reese Woodrow and JJ Sparks. Woodrow from Orlando, Sparks from Jacksonville. They are both on campus visiting this weekend. And I like when you can pepper in a couple of guys who are current verbal commits, because they can kind of help preach that gospel to the undecided players that, hey, like there's a reason why we like this place. There's a reason why we respect this coaching staff. And there's a reason why we've already pledged to play our college football here. So I'm going to count on Mr. Woodrow and Mr. Sparks to be two of Miami's best recruiters this weekend, because Mario and Mirabal and the staff, they can't do all the work, right? Sometimes you need the current verbal commits to do some work. Now, a player who visited Miami a couple of weeks ago, one of the tops in the country, is five-star defensive lineman Lamar Brown out of Baton Rouge. Now, given his location, LSU perceived to be in the lead for him, but we're not sleeping on Miami for Lamar Brown. In fact, Brown can't stop talking about Miami in the 2 weeks since he visited. He got Miami fans' attention on Thursday night. He made a social media post where he's all in his Miami Hurricanes gear. It was part of his official photo shoot down here. And the caption to the photo of him wearing all Miami stuff was, "Take me back," it said. He wants to be back down in Miami. And by the way, Lamar Brown, we're only going to have to wait, a little under a month for his announcement. He's got a July 10th commitment date set. In addition to Miami, his other finalists are LSU, Texas A&M, and Texas. He told On3 after his Miami visit, he says, "Miami's been good to me ever since the first visit." He told On3, "The place and coaches make me comfortable. This official visit was great, and I loved everything about it." What caught his attention the most, what I really loved, he said, about my time at Miami, were the coaches being real. The dinners, the meetings with the coaches, and getting to know recruits and players were some of the highlights too, he said. So that's your recruiting whip around. I guess, hold on, I can't use the word whip because I think Steve Wiltfong has that trademarked. It was the Donno look around of Miami's recruiting weekend coming up. Moving on from the recruiting tip, karma is a beautiful thing. Luke Fickell, head coach of the Wisconsin Badgers, was complaining about Mario Cristobal was throwing his own former player, Xavier Lucas, under the bus. F-A-F-O. He effed around and he found out. You want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on Locked On Canes. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. So we had a lot of drama back in, I guess it was January when this was going on. So, and honestly, Wisconsin, they were the ones that were in the wrong here. And if you're going to if the NCAA is investigating Wisconsin, they might want to take a look into the way the Badgers handled the Xavier Lucas situation. Because when Xavier Lucas asked them through the proper channels, put me in the transfer portal, I want to hit the portal, I want to explore leaving Wisconsin, they refused. They were required by NCAA bylaws to enter his name into the transfer portal within 5 days of his request. They refused illegally. Instead, they accused him of breaching a contract he allegedly signed for an NIL deal. They accused Miami of tampering. By the way, months ago, we had Lucas's lawyer on, and he explained how careful Miami was to avoid tampering, and how they were able to navigate the situation where Lucas was able to legally exit Wisconsin from Miami without officially entering the transfer portal, and they were able to find a loophole and do everything by the book. It didn't stop Wisconsin from complaining, accusing Miami of tampering, accusing Lucas of breaching a contract. Well, as it turns out, the ones who have had trouble following the rules was Wisconsin all along. So Wisconsin, you hate to see it, They have been placed on 1 year's probation by the NCAA and fined $25,000. That kind of feels like a slap on the wrist. But they were placed on 1 year's probation, fined $25K after an NCAA investigation showed that 9 coaches and staffers made impermissible phone calls to recruits in 2023. And this was, I assume, I think Luke Fickell was one of them, but it was his staff. This was on Luke Fickell's watch. Former defensive line coach Greg Scruggs and former director of player personnel Max Steinecker received 1 year show cause orders. Scruggs is now an assistant defensive line coach for the 49ers. Steinecker is USC's executive director of personnel. Wisconsin coach Luke Fickell and outside linebacker special teams coach Matt Mitchell were prohibited from having recruitment communications with high school prospects from June 15th to the 21st. Fickell was determined to have violated head coach responsibility rules. A Division I Committee on Infractions hearing panel determined that a total of 139 impermissible phone calls were made to 48 prospects. 60 of the calls lasted 1 minute or less. They probably told him, get to a payphone. Like the old, like in The Wire or in The Sopranos, like, hold on, this line might be tapped. We can't get to the payphone so we can talk about the impermissible stuff, was probably what the 1 minute calls were about there. But I mean, folks, now what Wisconsin is getting punished for is, of course, completely unrelated to the Xavier Lucas situation. But karma works in mysterious ways. And I've always said this. When you're going to accuse others of wrongdoing, my mom always told me this. My grandma told my mom this. Don't throw stones in a glass house, because you never know. If you're complaining about others allegedly doing wrong, you better hope your house is in order, or they're going to find you and karma is going to find you. And that's what happened here with Wisconsin. So it brought a smile to my face when I see the headline. Oh, Wisconsin put on probation for recruiting violations for 1 year. Enjoy it, Wisconsin fans. I know this is not Locked On Big Ten. It's not Locked On Badgers, but I can't say I didn't enjoy that update. Oh, man, I appreciate everyone for tuning in and making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're going to have a busy round of shows coming up in the near future. Because I asked you guys on social media and I asked you guys on the Locked On Canes Insiders chat, who do you think are going to be the top 6 players on Miami's football team this coming season? I wanted to know because I had to fill out a form because we're going to do a top 100 player ranking on the Locked On Network. And I submitted my Miami submissions for our top 6 players. I'm going to reveal my submissions to you guys on our next episode and what you guys are saying about it, because it's not easy. Like, there's 3 or 4 players that absolutely belong on that top 6 list, but then others where it's difficult to narrow it down. So I'd like to hear from you guys. Top 6 players on Miami's football roster heading into this upcoming season. We'll discuss that and so much more next time. Make sure you smash the like button, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your pods. And we'll talk to you again next time on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.